All right, we've managed to establish the perfect straight-on view, hence the name of this file, which is called straightonview.psd, found inside the 17 camera folder. Now we're going to use the object tool in order to reposition the SUV model. And bear in mind that the object tool affects the entire scene. So regardless of how many wireframes are at work inside of a scene, they all move along with the object tool. All right, so we no longer need the guideline, by the way. You can press Control semicolon or Command semicolon on the Mac in order to hide it. And then go ahead and grab the Object Rotate tool here inside the toolbox. And I'm going to just basically drag this guy around a little bit. This I find terribly unhelpful, just dragging inside the scene with the Object tool. And you can press the Shift key if you want to in order to create a kind of horizontal drag, but it's not going to respect the ground plane. This guy was already set directly on the ground plane, and now the rear wheels are way off the ground plane, and one of the forward wheels is below the ground plane. What a mess. So that is not the way I like to work with this tool. I'm going to press Control-Z, Command-Z on the Mac in order to undo that modification. And instead, I'm going to try to take advantage of that 3D widget. Now, it's a little hard because we have this straight-on view. The green controls on the axis are facing dead away from us. But if you position your cursor over the tiny portions of that rotate gadget that are showing up there, you should see the full yellow circle. Then go ahead and drag to the right in order to rotate the vehicle to the left as so. Here are the values that we're looking for. 0 is what we want for X. 0 is also what we want for Y. For Z, I want you to change the value to 51.2. And I know that's a highly specific value, but that's going to give us the effect that we're looking for. Next, let's go ahead and move the car forward. And I'm going to do that using the drag tool. You can also use the slide tool if you want to instead, but I'm going to show you some tricks associated with the drag tool. If you grab that drag tool and you go ahead and press the Alt key and drag down, then you will scoot the car forward. This would be the Option key on the Mac. And if you want to make sure you're scooting the car only forward and not back and forth, then you would add the Shift key. So this is the result of Shift-Alt dragging or Shift-Option dragging downward. This is the result of Shift-Alt dragging or Shift-Option dragging backward. All right, I'm going to go ahead and Shift-Alt drag downward just a little bit here. Now, I believe I've gone ahead and scooted the car off of the ground plane. And of course, we really do want this car exactly on the ground plane. Otherwise, we'll see that it's levitating in space once we cast a shadow. So go up to the 3D menu and choose Snap Object to Ground Plane in order to move it down to the proper location. All right, I'm also going to increase the size of this model, and I want to see what kind of changes I'm making to the size values, so I'm going to click on the Scale the 3D Object tool there in order to make it active. Then I can see my scale values, and then position your cursor over the cube so it turns yellow, and drag upward like so, and release. And we're really looking for those values to turn to 1.25 all the way around, so I need to drag just a little bit higher like so. There's 1.24. I almost got it. Just a little bit higher, 1.25 across the board. Of course, I could have entered those values, but that would have been tedious by comparison to repeatedly dragging on a cube, don't you know? All right, you can go ahead and reposition this guy if you want to by dragging on the various colored arrows that are associated with the 3D widget. You can see that the tires have descended below the ground plane, so we need to go ahead and snap the vehicle once again. But first, let's do this. Let's enter a few specific position values. Click on the drag tool once again so that we can see the position values. And here are the values I want you to enter. For the X value, it should be 1.34. Again, some pretty darn specific values. For the Y value, change it to negative 14.8. And then we could let Photoshop figure out the Z value for us. You don't have to enter it because you can just go over here to the 3D menu and choose Snap Object to Ground Plane. And you can see that the ideal Z value, at least in my case, is 0.067. All right, that takes care of the position of the automobile. So we've got the scene set exactly where we want it. In the next exercise, I'll show you how to position an infinite light, the sunlight in fact, with the help of an orthogonal camera.